Good morning. It's October 6th, Monday, 9 a.m. I'm Jim Czek. With me, Iain Burns, here with a really big show. We got a really big show, actually. Carney running out of time as cracks starting to show. And Carney's off to meet Trump on Tuesday. Media goes after the messenger. More and more realize Canada is responsible for its own woes. Energy Minister touts climate grifters move north. Kenney calls out the CBC. The numbers are bleak for Canada. Liberals now try to focus their anger on Trudeau. Focus your anger on Trudeau and Eby. I was wrong. Now that's a bitter pill to swallow, hey? I was wrong. Eby finally coming to terms with that. All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We got a really big show for sure. Like, subscribe, do all those things. We're an independent media outlet here based in the Okanagan, and Iain's out there in Ottawa. And Bill C-18 continues to crush and devastate local independent media. Another liberal bill that is for the benefit of the few and the expense of the many. That's kind of the theme, right? So let's kick it off. Carney's off to meet Trump. What do you think is going to happen there?
All I know for sure is that it's going to be entertainment. It's going to be high value entertainment, isn't it? As it always is. So that's about, I mean, realistically, that's all that we can say because it's so unpredictable, isn't it?
Yeah, I would agree. But Poilievre wishing him well, though. Poilievre wrote a letter here that he sent off to him. He says he promised to negotiate us a win. I guess he's just calling him out, really, and saying, let's show us the money.
Well, Poilievre, I think, his his survey people, his numbers people in the back rooms, I think they realized and warned that Poilievre was being seen by some people in the Canadian population as just being like a malcontent and just somebody that snipes all the time rather than actually tries to be constructive. So as most people are probably aware, he's changed his tone completely, and he says now, well, he hasn't changed it completely, but he always attaches now at the end of his insults. He says, "We're willing to put Canada first, so we'll help you, Mr. Mark Carney, if you do exactly what we want." And that's what this is. Where he says, like, we're hoping for the best. We'll help you in any way that we can. However, if you fail, we're going to be angry with you, kind of thing.
Well, Carney has missed a couple of self-imposed deadlines on his deals and has only seemed to make things worse. Every time we give something up, we just seem to get another slap. So,
but look on YouTube, a very good point made there. We already have the best deal, so why is he gone? If we're sat here with the best deal in the world, maybe he could go somewhere else instead. He could go possibly to London again. He's not there very often.
It's Sarcasm Monday. Is that what it's all going on here? Sarcasm Monday? And then I knew this was coming. I predicted this was going to happen. When the PBO's office there, Jason Jacques, came out and said the budget was shocking, alarming, stupefying, unsustainable, and he went out on a couple of shows there and talked about it. And just like clockwork, here comes CBC and the other outlets to make sure that if you can't dissuade the message, you discredit the messenger. And here they are. Now they found a previous PBO and says that he needs to walk these comments back, and they're putting pressure on Jason Jacques now to walk these comments back.
Yeah, it's the Giroux guy. What was it? Yves Giroux, I think his name was. It was very strange. That is a really peculiar thing to do. I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I consider that to be extremely unusual for somebody to come out and just attack their successor, basically. It's not something that they do. I mean, even him going to the media so soon after he stepped down, it's all very strange. And it seems to me, looking at it from the outside, that there's been quite a lot of pressure put on him to do that, to come out and offer a kind of a counter argument. But it's not just a counter argument, is it? You got to remember, we're in Canada, the land of credentials. So it's not good enough just to have a counter argument. You have to have a counter resume. You have to put someone's resume into the arena to fight someone else's resume. And obviously this guy is the perfect candidate, isn't he? Because he did the job for quite a few years. So he was probably seen as the ideal critic to come out and take a swipe
Yeah,
at
where does he
Jacques, and he's obliged and done it.
where does he work right now? The Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy at the University of Ottawa. He also teaches a seminar at the McGill. Those aren't funded by, I'm sure there's no bias.
It's highly questionable, and I would yeah, I don't really know what is going on there, but it smells a little bit fishy, doesn't it?
But just like clockwork, I predicted. I said what they're going to do is they're going to go after the messenger. They're going to discredit him. That's what they do. That's the first thing to do. They got to discredit him, saying that he's using language. Pretty soon they're going to start accusing him of being politically motivated. A whole bunch of it's a nonpartisan office. But the liberals.
And that's why it was so dangerous. You have to bear that in mind. That's why this was so damaging. It's because this guy is like basically a civil servant, and he's come out and he's starting to use language that is, scaring people. And I think he was seen as like this massive problem, and he had to be. He can't just be erased. He can't just be like shunted off the stage, because he's still going to be there and he's still going to be heeded. So what needed to be done was he needed pushback, and it's two, isn't it? Because I'm just looking in the document here. That's a different PBO, isn't it, Kevin Page?
Yeah. No, he was a prior PBO.
So there are two. So there's Giraud too. He's also come out, I believe. So quite a successful recruitment drive, I think, to get some voices in there.
And we also, last week, we put up the CBC's website for 3 days in a row to see if because the budget story should be the biggest story in Canada, and it wasn't on there. Let's see if it's on there today. Can we pull up the CBC's webpage? What do we got? Steel tariffs. This is all Carney, and Trump. Budget anywhere, Trump.
To be fair, that probably caused them quite a lot of pain to put Polyev at the top there. That was probably a really difficult experience for the page editor.
Yeah, but still the budget isn't there. Where is it?
Yeah, I mean, very strange considering there is actually budget news. We had Champagne was just out talking to the press, and we've got news. Oh, there it is. It is right down there. If you you have to scroll quite a long way down, but they do actually have a story about the budget there. Just next to Greta Thunberg, just to the right of Greta Thunberg, if you can see her silly little face.
It's the stuff above the fold that they want you to focus on, though. It's the stuff above the fold, not when you have to scroll through it. People don't do that. It's right above the fold is where what they want your energy on. There you go.
Yeah.
Francois Philippe Champagne, he's saying that they're only going to do a budget once a year, and it'll be a fall update instead of spring. So giving themselves some more time to not disclose what's going on. And they're
but also, it's more kind of breaking with precedent, isn't it? It's more of this kind of peculiar approach to Canada's institutions and Canada's traditions, even. And it makes it all the stranger that it's Mark Carney doing this. He was seen as like the ultimate scion of the establishment, like the prince of the establishment, who went, he got the king to come over and deliver the throne speech and all the rest of it. It's like, all right, Canada's in safe hands with this guy, and like our traditions are safe. But yeah, behind the scenes, behind the pomp and circumstance, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And obviously this is just the timing of the budget. That in itself is very weird. Obviously, most countries do it in spring. I mean, almost every country does it in spring, don't they? It's quite unusual for it to be done at any other time. But on top of that, we also have splitting the budget in two. So that there's operational expenses and capital expenses. That's pretty rare and strange as well.
But we predicted that as well. That's how you're going to kind of do this fancy song and dance. Just like, here's the budget that the credit agencies look at. You don't want to look at that one, though, because we've split this in two. This is what the media should talk about, not the huge deficit, because we have an operational budget and an investment budget. So how do you measure things?
All that matters, I think, is how the media responds to it, because they keep using as an example. They keep saying, "Oh, they do this in the United Kingdom," they do something similar to this. They don't do it exactly like that. But the point is, in Britain, when a budget comes out, it doesn't matter how the government sells it. The press will immediately go for the jugular, and they'll report on all the weakest points of the budget, and they will put it all together. They don't care how the government packages it. They'll package it themselves, and they'll say, here you go, public. This is the reality of it. The question for us here is, how will the big media organizations respond to this? Will they go along with the charade?
You want to bet?
Or will they sort of dissect it and say, look, this is reality?
So in fairness, if they want to change the presentation, just like in any financial statement, they have to change the comparisons from the years past. So they got to go back and then show us how that would show up in Harper's budgets and that. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're going to split them, then split them, and you're going to see massive surpluses probably. So, you know, this like shell game that they're playing, this is not like all the CPAs in Canada should be like losing their minds. But hey.
And all the former PBOs, perhaps. Yeah. But instead, they're coming out and having a go at the present PBO.
Yeah, well, why not? Eh? I'm sure he's not going to be he's not going to win over a long-term position because he's still the interim. There you go. And then there was a lot of the CEO of Enbridge there had lots to say. And basically, he's been saying what we've been echoing here is Canada is doing self-harm. We're standing in our own way. I mean, that's pretty much obvious. The last 10 years is the lost decade in Canada. That is so obvious, and it's all been for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals' climate change agenda. We've self-harmed ourselves so many ways, especially with the kibosh of the Northern Gateway Pipeline and the East-West Pipeline, and it's basically self-harm. And the Enbridge CEO is making a lot of speeches and saying it's the Liberal anti-energy laws that stand in our way.
The question, though, is what did we get for it? You know, we know what the cost was of those policies. We're very familiar now with the cost. But what was the benefit? What did we actually get? Because we were told at the time, weren't we, that we were going to obviously save the planet. Just take that for granted. But we were also told that we were going to have in Canada a world-leading renewable energy sector that created like just so many jobs that there were too many jobs to do. It was like Oprah Winfrey. You get a job. You get a job. But did that happen? No. What were the benefits? What were the benefits of those 10 years of quite extreme climate policy?
I have the answer for you. Apply the Liberal policy of for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many. Many, especially Liberals, have done really well with green scheme companies. They've done extremely well. Billions of dollars have funneled into these companies. They've done well.
And that's been replicated in other places as well. It's a tried and true sort of sequence, isn't it?
Well, here's an example of it. Tim Hodgson, the energy minister, he touted this one here. He's touting this one here. I put a piece of my LinkedIn. Abundant natural resources, competitive tax incentives, and a regulatory regime that inspires certainty. Canada has it all in securing U.S. investments. So here's a company moving from the United States to Canada. It's called Carbon Capture U.S. Wow. If you just look at that, you say, well, here's a win, a U.S. company. So the U.S. company is coming here because America killed the $76 billion green tax credits. $76 billion, they killed it. So this company can't survive down there. So it's moving to Alberta, and it's getting 75% in tax credits. I think about 55% of that from the Canada government, and another 12 from, however the math works, about 75%. 75 cents on the dollar they're getting to create what this monstrosity looks like here. It's called a carbon filter. So what they do is they use fans to suck air through the filters. You ready for this? They suck air through it, and then they have filters and they collect the carbon, and then they sequester this carbon, and they put it in trucks, and then take these trucks and they drive it to a location where they've drilled deep wells into the earth. Deep wells, saline wells, which is like saltwater wells, drilled them deep into the earth, and then they're going to inject this carbon in there in perpetuity, supposedly. And then, here's the best part, ready for this? They're going to sell these carbon credits to oil companies so that oil companies can continue to pump oil. It's like they've been given Canadian tax dollars. You got to follow this scheme. they've been given Canadian tax dollars to create this vehicle that then gives them the right to tax oil companies, and they make money off that. They make money from the Canadian taxpayer, and then they tax the oil companies at the same time. Expect more of these, because the United States has killed all that $76 billion worth of green schemes, and guess where they're going to go? They're going to come here. And to add insult to injury, this company, you can go right on their website and you can find it. They are the 2023 WEF award winner. There you go. They haven't made a dime, but just you know what does better? If you go on my LinkedIn, you'll find it. You know what does better than what this thing does? A tree. A tree. At 10% of the cost, a tree does it. Way better, way faster. And the tree doesn't. You don't have to truck it anywhere. The tree actually processes the carbon and locks it into the wood net, and then exhales oxygen that you get to breathe. But you know why they said that the trees are no longer reliable? Because of wildfires caused by climate change.
Climate change is the answer usually, isn't it? Whatever the problem is, usually that's the answer.
But then if you look at the wildfire stuff, Jasper, the Liberals tried to blame it on climate change. Turns out it wasn't. And then same thing as the fires on the East Coast there. They tried to blame it on climate change. And again, the wildfire fighters said, no, it's mismanagement. It's almost like they want these wildfires, and then they need these kind of companies. Guess who else sells carbon credits? Who's big in the carbon credit sphere? Take a stab at it?
Wouldn't be our favorite company that used to be Canadian and is now American.
Brookfield is a big seller of carbon credits, and this is what Carney's been talking about. So expect more of these companies coming to Canada, and they're going to be touted. This is a small company too, very small. You got to go on my LinkedIn and read this. Just the amount that this thing does, and this monstrosity. Don't forget, they got to create energy to make this. Like you got to build these things, right? And then you got to power these fans too. Don't forget, you got to power these fans, right? All to capture.
I think. Well, they say, don't they, that it's fueled by it's powered by renewables. Usually, that's also part of the pitch. But I think the thing to really remember about this is the justification, and the justification that is given is this is going to save the planet, right, which is manifestly false. You don't have to be a climate scientist or an expert to know that is completely false. This will have no effect, zero effect.
Do you know what else?
Carbon emissions, global warming, anything of that kind, because Canada is completely inconsequential, and other countries that are consequential aren't doing this, like the United States, which actually is consequential, matters when it comes to CO2 emissions, and has decided that it doesn't want to do this. And hence the company from America is coming here.
And they said that they couldn't go anywhere else because their technology is too expensive and it just doesn't work anywhere else. Because you know what? A tree can do it 10 times better and more efficient, and doesn't have to have its carbon injected into the saline solution, which who knows where that's going? Who's drilling these wells and putting it into our aquifers so that we drink it? I have no idea. So it's going to be like soda water down there. What's going on?
But it's going to be a lot of people on massive salaries as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a misallocation of labor as well as many other things. It's wrong on just so many levels. If this was a case that we could do this and we could bring down global emissions by like 30% or something, just in Canada, if we could do something like that, maybe people will go along with it, and you would actually be able to not just the true believers and the camp followers, but people who actually think about these things independently. Maybe they would also say, okay, well, that's cool, like 30% emission, like, okay, let's do that. But it's not. We're talking about less than 0.1% global emissions, probably considerably less than that. What's the point? What is the point of doing this? And that is never explained. The answer is always, oh, did you not see that wildfire last week? This is going to stop that. No, it isn't.
You're missing the point. This is the point is, it is how climate grift works. This is how to funnel taxpayer dollars into the few for the benefit of the few, expense of the many. This is key. It's complicated. It's hard to understand, and they're going to tell you that trees don't work. But it's not just trees that process carbon. Grass, anything that has photosynthesis is a carbon filter. Everything, grass, carrot tops, everything, anything with photosynthesis. So and if you go on my LinkedIn, you'll see that it just takes I think a couple acres of trees to do everything this monstrosity does.
Well, also things like bogs do it, so like peat bogs and stuff like that. Yeah, which obviously, needless to say, Canada has in abundance.
And seaweed and all that stuff too, like the seaweed in the ocean, the kelp, all that stuff. But
it's just astonishing, isn't it?
Can you apply for carbon credits? Or sell your carbon credits from the trees in your backyard and the grass you have in your backyard? Can you?
That would be a good way to redistribute wealth.
They should be able to sell their carbon credits to oil field companies like these guys are going to do it. And don't forget, this is the whole thing. And this is Brookfield. If you go read Brookfield's thing, carbon credits are the thing. And Carney has talked about carbon credits forever. And that's part of this clean energy superpower. They're going to allow us to pump oil, but they're going to have to buy the carbon credits. And guess who just showed up to sell them carbon credits? Isn't that amazing? Talk about timing.
It's because there is such an enormous gap between the desire on the part of the public to want a clean environment and who care about the planet. There's a massive gap between that and then what is done by the people in power to respond to that desire from the Canadian public or from the global public. The gap is just gigantic, isn't it? And it's in that space that you get a lot of these sketchy operators that come and just make a fortune.
So
carpetbaggers, you might say.
So the other thing is, Carney led this. He was part of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, and he was on the talking circuit there with the WEF for a long time. It's because he was the chair of this thing. It fell apart. He had helped establish that in 2021. While serving as UN's special envoy on climate action and finance. And it ceased operations on Friday as losing most of its membership. Yeah, as soon as Donald Trump won the election and they killed all the green stuff, that was it. The money taps dried up. And then if you go listen to that speech, and then we talked about it a while back when Carney said we got to move the money from the soft hands to the long-term hands. The long-term hands are you, the Canadian taxpayer. Because a lot of these banks that financed all these things, like we just watched that guy, this carbon capture, they want their money back. Anyway, here's another example of how the CBC, this is Jason Kenney, former Premier of Alberta, talking to CBC. We'll listen to this clip.
I don't know if he spelled out any specific action that he would take to stop it, other than to point out there is, as a point of fact, no private sector proponent right now for all the reasons that we've discussed, and that he doesn't support the idea. But he's not alone in that, right? We spoke with Marilyn Slett earlier in the show. She's with the Coastal First Nations Great Bear Initiative, sort of the group of First Nations who have land around Prince Rupert. They don't want this either. And there's a duty to consult with them, and they do not want an oil pipeline coming in, and they don't want that added tanker traffic on top of what's already there from LNG.
David, I find it passing strange that the CBC in particular, but also other media outlets, so rarely seem to interview the pro-development First Nations. They seem to get pushed out of the camera, so to speak. The majority Western Canadian First Nations support responsible resource development, and this was tested on the Trans Mountain expansion. The Supreme Court of Canada upheld a finding of the trial court in BC on that the duty to consult had been properly undertaken, the honor of the Crown was discharged, and that of the 119 proximate or interested Indigenous communities in that project, that 110 of them either supported it or were neutral. So I think I just encourage media to find balanced voices amongst Indigenous communities who are...
I mean, he's just calling them out.
Didn't like it, though, as usual.
Yeah. And then we just got, here's this, I think Jason Kenney left this graphic behind as well. And then this is from Brian Lilly here, and this is, you and I have talked about this a million times. Western Canadian Select sells at a discount because we have one customer. And that was done, and including under Mark Carney's advice, that was done to kill the Northern, he testified, to kill the Northern Gateway Pipeline. And so we don't have another customer. We have one customer that we're at the mercy of, and that has decided to ratchet up the pressure on Canada. And we just, like, where are we supposed to sell it? So it sells at a discount.
It's also, Brent is, I believe, going to potentially embarrass myself here, but I think that's sweet, isn't it? And easier to refine. I think that is like, but that's a small difference. It shouldn't be this big of a gap.
And then let's just, this is for people that say climate change is important, and but Norway has like a 95% EV adoption. They have almost all clean energy. But look at their enormous wealth fund that keeps growing. This is all from selling oil and gas to whoever will buy it. To whoever will buy it. They built this up. Canada, the only place that has a sovereign wealth fund in Canada is Alberta. And they're looking, these schemes that are coming are going to be looking to tax Alberta oil by making them buy carbon credits. That's, likely the reason that they never removed that emissions cap. They're just like, well, you can pump more oil, but here you're going to have to buy carbon credits. Here's Canada, 2013 to 2024. What happened in that time span? Canada went from number 5 to, like the Friendly Giant would say, way, 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 way down there. Hey?
US as well, to be fair, but
yeah. Well, I mean, just
Norway. We just talked about Norway. Didn't move at all. Just quite happy there, aren't they?
And then
yeah, I mean, that is rather interesting, isn't it? When you look at that, when you look at the other one, you look at the countries that are above Canada. Latvia. I mean, most of the people now who are in charge of Latvia, most of the sort of the bulk of the senior workforce were born in a communist country under the boot of Russia. And now they have apparently a better sort of quality of life than we do here. That's astonishing.
Yeah.
Lithuania as well, and Estonia, all of those Baltic nations. Yeah, I mean, it's shocking to see, isn't it?
And then this one here, and this we've seen Canada slip here. Canada used to be ahead of the Americans, especially many of the states. And here Canada now fills out the bottom rung of, like, even worse than like Mississippi. I know most people can't.
But it was like, once upon a time, it was the sort of shining light. I guess it still is, but it used to be in and amongst the Americans, didn't it? Now, maybe not.
And all of this comes from, and here's this, the National Post put up an op-ed there, the Trudeau-Carney heirs catastrophic mismanagement. I mean, we can show you chart after chart after chart, and if, all the people that are saying differently, show us the charts that show it better. Show us the economic data that shows Canada improved over the past 10 years. Show it to us. I'd like to see it. I'll put it up if you can show it to us. Daniel Smith again now saying too. Daniel Smith, and this is what was warned on printing money too. Justin Trudeau. Remember when they asked him about, what about economics? He says, I don't worry about the economy. It takes care of itself. I don't worry about balancing the budget. Budget balance itself. Those are his famous words. But here's Daniel Smith.
We've been going down a path for the past 10 years where governments in Ottawa felt that they could just create money out of thin air. It's led to the inflation crisis. It has led to the decline in our standard of living. It's led to fleeing capital, and it's part of the reason why we had, at the beginning of this evening, somebody talking about the very serious danger that the federal government might become unviable. We have to get back to the idea that you have to create wealth before you can spend it. We've been going down a path.
What? There she goes talking sense again. Hey?
But the Carney's promised us the exact opposite, hasn't he? Using wealth that we don't really have, using borrowed money to generate wealth through investment. That's his.
That's the
You know,
pitch.
that's his appeal to the. Yeah, that's the pitch.
Well, you can probably hold us to task on this and see how many more of these carbon capture companies move to Canada from the U.S. and how they tout it as being this great thing, how these American companies are coming here. Just think they're coming here. The American companies are coming here now so that they can grift the Canadian taxpayer for a 75-cent tax credit. 75-cent tax credit. And then they're going to get the permission to sell something nobody wants to the oil companies, carbon credits. So something they can, it's almost like an NFT scam. Whether they're going to pump something in the ground that who's going to verify? Brookfield's already been called out for some of its fancy bookkeeping. Go look, you go on the internet and search it. Brookfield called into question for many of its carbon calculations that it makes.
There's been loads of scams in this area, hasn't there, over the years? I mean, the one that comes to mind is it was Volkswagen, wasn't it? It was like a gigantic scam that they were pulling off.
Billions of dollars in fines too, yeah. The food professor puts out this 2025 update here. Beef, coffee, citrus prices surged most of this year. Orange is up 40%, and steak, like holy cow. Beef sirloin up 44%, coffee 32%. Except for beef, many products were impacted by our own tariffs. Again, Canada, self-harm.
Well, and also you could argue and that's certainly what he argues, the food professor, that the likes of supply management as well add an unnecessary sort of premium to a lot of Canadian product.
A lot of our issues, and this is the thing, and again, it's for the benefit of the few. What's supply management for? Who does that benefit? Everybody?
Our great, delightful friends in Quebec and a little bit in Ontario as well.
For the benefit of the few, at the expense of the many. Yep. Cost
but that
of living
really does benefit politicians in Quebec, doesn't it? It's
for
really good
too,
for them.
Right? Votes too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It benefits them because then they get votes.
For the benefit of the few, expense of the many that can't put milk on the table. Cost of living by far Canadians' biggest concern. Climate change, reconciliation, fringe issues. I mean, this is what it comes down to. People can't afford to eat. We're going to put up a story. I'm going to do an interview, actually. British Columbians right now are choosing not to get health, like dental or health, or take medications, or they're skipping meals. They're foregoing lots of things because they can't afford it. This is what it is. It's the tabletop issues. And even if you look across the line in the U.S., they ignored it. Remember when the Democrats were running? They said, there's no inflation. You're just imagining it. I think that was the message from Kamala Harris tonight. It's just your imagination. And then
I mean, who wasn't
Freeland.
saying that? Who wasn't saying that? It wasn't just
Chrystia Freeland, too. They're just imagining it. Just cut your Disney thing. And it is just disconnected here. And it's, but it's actually starting to show up in the polls as well, though, right? So, the polls, they're pretty fickle, though, too, right? I mean, look at what the polls were for Poilievre, and then prior to the election, it would look like a landslide. And then a couple of fear-mongering videos and a lot of media prop up, and boom, there you go, back in the same soup pot.
What people tend to do nowadays, the smarter ones, the polling people, they look at trends, don't they? And the trends have shown that, and they look at also certain indications, like not necessarily vote intention, but other things like in the popularity of the leaders and stuff like that. And it started to show what we all expected, that Carney, like the shine is starting to wear off. But it's still, he's still very shiny, but the shine is starting to wear off, and he's starting to lose popularity, and people are starting to feel less confident about the future.
Well,
all of that, if you look in the poll history, all of that was looking great when Carney first turned up. It was like, for the first time in many years, people had started to feel more confident about the future and all those indicators. But I think what it means basically is that what the polls show, people have maybe been a little bit disappointed in Mark Carney and realised that he isn't going to sort of save Canada with a clap of his hands or a bounce of his elbows.
Well, here's the question for you for most things. The person you're listening to, Does he talk straight, or do you get a straight answer? Like whenever you listen to our prime minister, do you feel you got an answer? Like, after 5 minutes of going around circling the drain, like that one speech, I kind of understood it to say we're going to move money from soft hands, and we're going to move it to long-term hands. And the only long-term hands I know is the government. And he's going to take that money. All these carbon grifters are going to come here, and the banks are going to get restored their investment money, the banks. And then because he talked all these banks into doing it too. Like he talked all these big banks, ESG, all that stuff they had to do, all the big banks, and they're probably all looking for their money back. And they want their money from all this climate stuff. And guess who's going to buy it? We're going to lead in that
area. Just think of the plaudits that are going to be received by the Liberal Party for that. Just imagine those plaudits.
And then the stink of the last 10 years is starting to get really bad. Like, I mean, even it's tough to hide for the CBC and stuff like that. The stench when you pull up these charts, you just look at them and it just looks bad. So what have they started to do? Lo and behold, they pulled out a couple of Catherine McKenna's and stuff like that to go after. They need a fall guy. Justin Trudeau is the new fall guy, right? Why? He should be the fall guy, but I mean, they're going to blame him for everything. They got to remember that Mark Carney was his economic advisor, because we know that Trudeau didn't give a care about the economy. He said it himself. And in these speeches that are being made of these things, it says that all Trudeau cared about was virtue signaling and having, women there. And in McKenna's new books, Run Like a Girl, she describes Trudeau in harsh terms, describing as someone that would talk down to people and who was mostly interested in things like gender-balanced cabinet as a way to virtue signal. You know who you can blame for all this too? Like 10 years of Trudeau, you know who you can blame for all this? The CBC. Did they ever call him to account? Did they? They got mad when they defended him, like all his policies. They started calling you ists, like you were a racist if you talked bad about immigration, everything.
Well, with the trucker convoy, they certainly they read him loud and clear, didn't they? And they went immediately into the trenches to fight for him on his behalf after he made those inflammatory claims.
That had to be one of the biggest abuses of power and privilege this nation has seen, and it was said in their committee that was an abuse of the Emergencies Act. But where's the accountability for it? It's the same crew there, including Carney, because Carney was the one that said go after their bank accounts. It was his advice to Chrystia Freeland to freeze bank accounts. There you go.
What I'm interested in is who's gonna buy this book? Like, really? I know some journalists are gonna read it so that they can write stories about it, but who's gonna buy this book?
Probably the Liberal government will buy it. Lots of it.
Yeah, some mysterious
tax credits and all kinds of.
Get it into the universities. Put it on. Get it into all of the offices. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a dark decade. How's that? The shift of the immigration is completely due to the system being abused to the point of breaking by the Liberals. So they're losing this. Again, this immigration policy they had of wide open doors, who did that benefit? Was it everybody or is it just the few? Again, if you test it to the Liberal mantra there of for the benefit of the few, the expense of the many, there's corporations that did well with cheap labor. The colleges did well with all these students paying big bucks. A lot of the rental places did extremely well, but who paid for the price with no access to health care? Who paid the price when it came to skyrocketing rents? And what did Brookfield actually say? Mark Carney stated that in one of his letters to his shareholders. And we did this story a long time ago. He said in there, we are in an opportune time for Brookfield to take advantage of rising demand in rents where we can actually add on, like add-ons, so that we can really squeeze the renter. He actually said that. CBC covered that, of course.
There was a study that came out of Denmark recently doing the rounds. It's always Denmark because they have such a candid approach to political discussion and scientific inquiry in Denmark. For some reason, I don't know enough about Denmark to say why that is. But they've released yet another study. They've done so many of these studies. And it shows that immigration over the last couple of decades is basically solely responsible for that country's not housing crisis per se, but troubles with its housing and increased costs in housing. You don't get studies like that done in Canada, so we just kind of have to extrapolate and say that, yeah, the housing crisis, to a great extent, we have to conclude in this country, as in Denmark, is a consequence of mass immigration. And yet, all we ever hear about is supply rather than demand.
Well, we also
That's
heard
just one facet of immigration, really, isn't it? But you say who else benefited? So obviously landowners, people that were developers and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you talk about companies that abuse cheap labor. But I think in theory, at least, the Liberal Party was also supposed to benefit, because the idea was that all of these immigrants that came in would owe their gratitude to the Liberal Party for letting them in. Mm-hmm. And similar sort of idea that was that the Democrats had in the US. Whether or not that's true is another thing, though. I think that one might have backfired on the Liberals, but that was supposed to at least be another one of the beneficiaries of this policy.
And remember people like Mark Miller, when you dared question him on it, what did he say? He called you a racist. And then when Poilievre questioned it too, the media went after him, called him a racist for not wanting immigrants. And I mean, it was just nasty, absolutely nasty.
Mark Miller, the same guy that referred to these universities that were getting in the immigrant students. He referred to them as puppy mills. So in other words, he called immigrants dogs. That guy. I mean, are we going to take moral instruction from that gentleman? Is anybody going to take moral instruction from him? Okay. If so, please get in touch. I'd like to submit you for psychological testing.
And this one here is a question on the CBC. I like this guy this one guy that I like on CBC, the guy that does that About That series. Let's listen in on him here.
It's not these 567 stocks that are Carney's biggest problem, but there's another much smaller group of stocks and one very particular set of stock options that may represent the largest conflict of interest.
Just on your personal assets, do you have any, in Stripe and Brookfield, do you have any equity stock options or anticipate any future payments from either two of those companies?
So when you're looking at the list of stocks Carney disclosed to Canada's Ethics Commissioner, arguably the most important page is the very first one, because that's where you'll find 8 distinct sets of investments where Carney has a more direct connection. Take Stripe, for example, the payment processor. Carney's a former board member. Watershed Technology. They help companies track their carbon emissions. They were founded by people who used to work at Stripe, and Carney was on a board of advisors there, contributing to their work in a few ways.
How does a banker end up obsessed about climate change? What was your journey here?
Appropriately focused on climate change.
And Brookfield Asset Management, a $1 trillion investment firm. Before entering politics, Carney was the board chair. And part of what he earned during his time at Brookfield was a whole bunch of stock options. So here's the regulatory disclosure showing Carney's stock options in Brookfield. 2 sets of options, more than 400,000 of them in total, giving him the right to buy company stock at about $35 and $40 a share. The profit he could make if he did exactly what we just did in our earlier example, buying low and then immediately selling high, just over $6.8 million US. And actually, that's the expected profit given where the share price was at the end of 2024. Now, we're 6 months later, and the price has actually gone up. So today, you turn those options around, you'd profit more like $8 million US. Either way, you start to see why Carney's critics believe this is a problem.
He has announced he's going to spend billions.
And also that spike in Brookfield's, I couldn't quite see it, it was very small, but it's seen an increase in its value following Mark Carney's decision to remove it from Canada and put it into the US, the headquarters. So it's partly down to something that he did, which is quite interesting. Something that critics have said harmed Canada.
A lot of this is going to, so just watch for it to play out. A lot of this is going to come out. He's going to come out and likely say we're going to build some type of oil pipeline somewhere, but it's going to have to be clean oil. And the only way it's going to get cleaned is if we offset it with carbon credits. And lo and behold, they got all these companies like Brookfield that can sell carbon credits. Carbon credits is going to be Canada's new currency. So maybe, like, again, you should start campaigning to be able to sell the carbon credits from your trees, your grass, the carrots you grow in the backyard.
Carbon dollars. How many carbon dollars does it cost to get a cheeseburger in this dystopia?
Here's opposition. This is from Holly Dolan Blacklocks. She predicts an internet witch hunt. I think a lot of people are predicting this as well. And then they pledged to block a bill granting cabinet extraordinary powers to target internet users in the name of public safety. We may end up on that list. This is Leslie Luce, the MP, on Bill C8, respecting cybersecurity. And as it stands, it would allow the government to deprive individuals of essential services without ever seeing the evidence. There you go. Canadians should not have to surrender their rights to remain secure, she says. And this one here is, they've tried this like a few times now in different kind of variations. And, you know, like if this legislation passes in its current unamended form, the Minister of Industry could wake up one morning and decide any of us or any private citizen may, or possibly, as she's not quite sure, be some sort of threat to our telecommunication system. And with no warrant, no trial, no automatic judicial review, she could call Rogers or TELUS and give her citizen's address book on their internet search results of the browser history. Yeah. And, you know, don't forget these people already froze bank accounts and all that too, right? So. And
who is that minister right now? Who's the Minister of Industry that would have control? It's a special, very, very special human being called Melanie Joly.
Yeah, she's very, she's probably one of the most intelligent people sitting in cabinet right now.
You can definitely trust her to be extremely civilized with this kind of power, can you? And like really weigh the pros and cons and sit there and sort of like read a George Orwell essay or something, or some John Locke. It's like, oh, I've really got to make a really difficult decision here.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow. I'm just checking my calendar here. I can't seem to find it here. My calendar doesn't want to load. Tomorrow. No, Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday, Jeffrey Moyse will be back. Pierre Poilievre is now on this issue, the Cowichan lands that were given title to the Cowichan tribe. That's in Richmond, sorry, the Richmond property. This thing is going to have to go to the Supreme Court of Canada. But that's a good interview. It really gives a history. That's a lawyer that has about 31 years working for the government in Aboriginal law, and he's now on his own. He's got about 33 years altogether and practicing in Aboriginal law. He'll be back Wednesday to talk about it, and that's at 10:30 if you want to listen in on that one. But there's a good interview up already on the Now Media website. And then this one, you and I interviewed Dan Elvis on Friday to get an update on the BC Ferries fiasco scandal that includes now, it's even got Mark Carney in there somehow. So we got Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, Gregor Robertson, and David Eby, all saying that Canada can't build anything. But that story should be up, that interview should be up today. That story is being, I saw it was being put up right now. And this one here, I had to put this out here because, you know, we have Evan Solomon in Canada that's in charge, the failed journalist for CBC and art dealer, Mark Carney's art dealer, is in charge of our AI, and he's traveling across the country doing open houses. But here's your favorite person here. I'll let you introduce her. She's going to tell you what their focus in the EU is. Go ahead, introduce us, our friend here.
You want me to do it?
Sure, she's your friend.
Ursula von der Leyen, the Queen of Europe, the Commissioner of the European Union, unelected, of course, but all-powerful.
Let's hear what she has to say about AI and see if it strikes any confidence in you.
Next week, we are presenting an Apply AI strategy. It is based on a simple yet transformative principle, and that is AI first. I think this is worth an applaud. I heard the one and only person there. That was symbolic for the uptake of AI. One person starting, the rest following. And indeed, whenever a company or public office, what is AI first? When they face a new challenge, the first question must always be, how can AI help? Because when AI is in the loop, we reach better solutions, fast, reliable, affordable. Some of your startups are already pioneering it.
That's good.
Let me tell you, I'm a medical doctor.
Well, that's good. I've got too much confidence. Are you getting a little squeamish there?
Just she's dripping with charisma, isn't she? What is AI?
I'd say between her, if you put Evan Solomon and her in a room along with Melanie Jolie, I think AI, just even the first versions might kick their butt.
But the truth of the matter is, obviously, to take it seriously, the European Union isn't really much of a player in AI. No. It's the US and China. The European Union, as has been true with tech in general, the European Union has just sat it out, really, and thought about how to regulate things rather than actually create things. Hence, the continent is in trouble and has been for a while.
This story here, we've done this is a story from Colonial. One of our journalists did it. It's 28% of adults now say they've had a romantic relationship with AI. There you go.
Dear me.
I think that's Annie from Grok. Anyway, there you go. Okay, so I don't know if you're in that group or not.
I think obviously as it improves and as it's linked, which is going to happen relatively soon, I imagine, as it's linked to like physical apparatus, that percentage is going to increase, isn't it? And then we're going to have a real conversation about how to fix it, figure it out.
And then this one here, Elon Musk, this is important, and I've been saying this for a long time, or echoing this, is SpaceX is one of the most important companies in the world. And this is all on like launches, and then the blue bar is on reusable rockets. And then the orange stuff is when it has to be a new booster each time. And you can see how, if something should twig in your mind there, what's important about reusing the rockets is that you don't have to build a new rocket every time. Less costly. And that's why you can do more launches.
And this has been known about forever.
Well, nobody could do it. Nobody could do it.
Yeah.
Nobody. When he did it,
tried
they said
all kinds of different ways, didn't they? And what was that one that NASA had, the NASA shuttle thing? That was like an attempt, wasn't it, to kind of save money in a similar vein. But obviously, they still had to use disposable boosters.
Yeah, the boosters were coming off of it. Yeah, and it was They even tried to piggyback it. Remember, they tried to piggyback it on the back of on a 747 or something like that too. And
yeah. But there were so many. Like there were people that were literally saying it's such difficult technology that we'll probably get the space elevator or something like that first. Space elevator being just like a really long, like a ladder almost up into space. That's how gloomy people were about the prospect of having reusable boosters. So it's quite remarkable that we're living in an age where that is happening.
I invented that actually a long time ago. It's called a pea shooter. You just build this long cylinder tube, suck the air out of it, and you don't need hardly any energy to push stuff into the atmosphere. Now, the only problem I have with it is how do you make the tube stand up?
Yeah.
You need a few miles, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the theory was behind. Or was it something to do with like gravity would naturally keep it going or something? It's quite a weird plan, isn't it? Weird theory.
We're going to move on to our BC news here. And this is an interesting...
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
EB, I was wrong. That's a bitter pill to swallow. EB saying he was wrong. And this is a little clip here. You can barely hear it, though. Somebody recorded it with a cell phone. Let's play this little clip here.
I was wrong.
That's good enough, yeah, because, I mean, it's hard to hear it anyway. Basically, EB says, I was wrong on drug decriminalization. It's not the right policy.
I mean, that's a hell of a thing to be wrong on, isn't it? Especially when you look at his career and the sort of work that he used to do as an activist lawyer. You know, it was basically the decriminalization agenda of the left that has predominated for the last 4 decades or more.
What this is
what he's saying here is almost, it's not just I was wrong about this policy, which he tries to say it was not the right policy. What he's saying is like almost like my entire philosophy was wrong. Like my principles are wrong, and I'm going to have to become a new guy.
This was an experiment in Canada by Justin Trudeau and David Eby that cost many people their lives and destroyed many communities.
It's still ongoing, though, not just drug decriminalization, but other kinds of decriminalization, like the de facto decriminalization of petty crime, for example. You know, and not even that petty, some of it quite sort of hefty crime. Like, the consequences of all of these
here's the
policies
thing.
are pretty huge, and it's going to take a long time to quantify.
And here's the big thing. Eleanor Sturko points this out, and I've interviewed Eleanor, just like, he's admitted a while ago that it was wrong. Yet we're still going to run it till January. Why? Because some organizations need to make the money off of what? Why? Why do we still run it? It's wrong. It's hurting people. It's costing people their lives. Yet, you know, it ends on January. Why?
Yeah, it's a quite rather peculiar one. I'm not sure what the justification is for that.
A lot of these drugs that BC was labeling, like boxing and labeling as safe supply, ended up in Alberta being sold on the street.
And Daniel Smith complained about it and then was attacked for doing so.
Yeah. Imagine that. Eh?
I believe David Eby was one of the people who did that, though. I'm not completely sure of that.
And the government-funded media not too far behind in helping with that as well. We've seen lots of closures here in the last couple of days. Hospitals in the Lower Mainland forced to temporarily close ER. Now they're starting to see it there, because this was mainly an interior and northern BC problem, because we saw it all over. Oliver, 100 Mile House, Lillooet, Merritt, I don't know, like Williams Lake, and even Kelowna with the pediatric department here, and then Kamloops, and now they're starting to see it in the Lower Mainland. That'll get some attention.
Well, it has. The reason I put this story in there is because the press generally are reporting on this, like Canadian Press, you know, all the sort of major outlets in BC and in Canada are reporting on this. Whereas over the weekend, there were at least three closures in the interior, just the interior. Obviously, nobody cares because that's dog bites man. That's just like, oh yeah, whatever, that again. Whereas this is man bites dog, because this is the precious jewel of British Columbia, isn't it? It's the Lower Mainland.
They're calling for, the Delta Council is calling a public health emergency. Oh yeah? Where was this public health emergency? And it was Merritt. How many times?
Solidarity from Dylan.
How many times was Oliver closed? And then I think there was one there, you might as well have called first, Lytton, I think, right? You might as well called first to see if it was open or not. Or Lillooet, I mean.
Lillooet, yeah. Well, one year it was like Williams Lake was a disaster, to the extent that Adrian Dix even went and addressed their council. Then we had Oliver, yeah. Lillooet, and then there was another one that was really, really bad. I can't remember what it was now. Maybe it was 100 Mile House. But yeah, it's like, it's the same places again and again and again, but Merritt is another one. But obviously, yeah, it's not that. People just don't care when it's a place like Merritt. The truth is, people just don't care, do they? Like, the only people that care about Merritt, it seems, are the people in Merritt. But when it happens in the Lower Mainland, everybody's head explodes and it has to be rectified.
And their votes don't matter. And then here's the thing. In Lillooet, or Merritt for that matter, you're told, you can just drive to Kamloops over a mountain pass that might be blocked.
2 hours.
Or what have you, right? Like it could be 4 hours, it could be 6 hours, it could be it sucks to be you.
And often as well, they tell you, they say, all right, Williams Lake is closed, go to 100 Mile House or something. So they tell you to go to a one that might well be closed as well, or like is frequently closed. So it's kind of like, it's like the injured looking after the dying or something. It's like some sort of First World War painting.
We're going to do our international news here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Looks like France just can't get its stuff together. The latest French prime minister lasting just 26 days before resigning. That's Sebastian Lecornu. Is that how you say it? Lecornu? Resigning less than a day after.
I reckon.
After a day after he unveiled his cabinet. Macron hanging on to power, though. Let's listen in a little bit on this. We'll just play a small clip of this French disaster.
France's new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, resigned on Monday, barely 14 hours after appointing his new cabinet. His swift resignation was unexpected and unprecedented and marked another major deepening of France's political crisis.
La composition du gouvernement au sein du socle commun.
The composition of the government was not smooth and awakened some partisan appetites, sometimes quite legitimately linked to the upcoming presidential election.
La future élection présidentielle.
The far-right National Rally immediately urged President Emmanuel Macron to call a snap parliamentary election. After weeks of consultations with political parties across the board, Lecornu, a close ally of Macron, had appointed his ministers on Sunday. But the new cabinet lineup had angered opponents and allies alike. They either found it too right-wing or not sufficiently so, raising questions on how long it could last. The resignation hit French stocks in early trade. Paris's CAC 40 dropped 2%, making it the worst-performing index in Europe.
That's good. That's good. As they call it, the Caca Index.
It's not a very good name, that, is it? But yeah, this is craziness, because I think they've had 5 prime ministers in 2 years, or less than 2 years. That's like a political meltdown that it's hard to even understand. Like, you look at the British, the absolute catastrophe of post-Brexit Britain, where they just went through so many, and like Liz Truss and all those clowns, Boris Johnson's disastrous reign and all the rest of it. Like, that looked like a clown show. But if that was a clown show, then what is this? You know, this is just like catastrophic. 26 days. And then there's going to be another guy put in probably, or elections, and it's just going to be more of the same. They're in a real predicament there in France.
I didn't put it in. I wanted to put it in, but I know that did you get your tickets yet? Kamala Harris is coming to Toronto in November, I think, right?
No, unfortunately, they haven't arrived yet. I'm waiting for them, waiting to be given some complimentary tickets.
She went on some unhinged rant about how this was the closest election ever, and started screaming that Donald Trump has no mandate. And of course, the people in the room, they're just as unhinged as her. Anyway, I wonder where they go to get all these talking points. More breaking news, though. Japan. Looks like the Carney group has lost another G7 nation to the right. Here it is. Sani Takashia becomes Prime Minister of Japan, a strong conservative woman who just crushed the opposition here. They didn't think she was going to win. And then Trump putting out, Japan has elected its first female prime minister, a highly respected person of great wisdom. So definitely a more person, I guess, which got more loyal to the customs of Japan and wants Japan to be Japan. What they would call here a nationalist, right?
Oh, no doubt. I imagine she will be referred to as far right by the likes of Reuters, who just referred to Le Pen as far right there, which is quite a stretch these days. Maybe her dad was far right. Don't know about her, but anyway, she's come out with a very strict immigration policy, because Japan, a lot of people are still under the assumption that Japan has no migration, but they started to loosen it a little bit, because obviously they have basically the worst demographics on the planet in terms of lack of kids being born and lots of old people. So they started to loosen it and bring in migrants, and there's been all kinds of trouble in Japan. I mean, Japan, of all the countries in the world, I could have told you that for free, that wasn't going to work out particularly well. But yeah, so she's kind of riding that wave to some extent. So in that sense, there is quite a bit of similarity between her and Trump. But I don't know. He doesn't seem. It's hard to say with Trump. Like, he gets on with a lot of left-wing leaders as well. It's not about left or right with Trump, is it? Because he's good friends with Carney, for example. So seems to be very nice to Carney and preferred Carney to Polyev and explicitly said so. So I don't think it matters all that much to old Trumpy poo, and he's always been quite favorable to Japan, so it shouldn't change their relations.
Yeah, I would think that the only relations that'll change is definitely they won't be part of this coalition of the willing on the climate stuff for this new world order that Carney and his Liberal cabinet are trying to build.
Well, he's starting to look very lonely on the world stage, isn't he? I mean, when he was elected, he was immediately lonely, but he's getting lonelier.
It's going to be easy to lead in a group of one.
Who else can we have? Maybe Luxembourg or somebody will join.
I was going to play this clip, but I don't think it's worth playing. But it's just a guy running for attorney general. We won't play it. He's just completely unhinged, and he's talking about how he, well, maybe we should play it, because it just shows you how when we start using the rhetoric that is so terrible and linking people to fascism and Hitler and that, and what it causes people to do, and then some people then justify violence against other people. Let's play this clip here.
Breaking news from the campaign trail.
Jay Jones is under fire tonight.
Jay Jones is under fire.
Jay Jones is under fire after messages he sent in 2022 saying former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert should be shot.
I'm excited about this ticket.
It's been great to be out on the campaign trail with Jay Jones.
You said Gilbert's wife could watch her own child die in her arms so that Gilbert might reconsider his political views.
We deserve an attorney general who will stand up for the people of Virginia.
Jones said, quote, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert.
Yeah, you get the idea.
Sickening.
And he's still in there. Like, I mean, they're trying to convince him to
lots of radicalized people out there.
It's just absolutely appalling. We'll finish with this. And we do thank you for watching. Hey, gold at all-time highs, up $72 this morning at $39.59. $39.59 an ounce. And in Canadian dollars, what is that in Canadian dollars? You want to take a guess at that? 5523.84. Up $100 today. Up $100 today in Canadian dollars. And Canada is the only G7 nation to hold no gold. Mark Carney was part of that when they sold the last of our gold. I think in 2015, the last of our gold, or 2016, something like that. They sold the last of it. Actually, I think it was 2020 when they sold the last. But we have none. Zero. None. Canadian dollar looking weak. Silver even banging on the door of all-time highs. It's right now today, silver, 48.61. I think 50 was the all-time high. That was when the Hunt brothers tried to corner the market back in the 80s. But silver is definitely banging on the door of an all-time high. And then Bitcoin just on a rocket ship. Actually pulled back a bit, but it did break a high this morning. In Canadian dollars, $175,000 a bit. I understand that Canada is going to start tracking carbon credits, so you can see how much carbon credits are worth, right? So
the hot new currency.
So you can sell your. Yeah, we should be campaigning. Like, we should say, if you want to do this, if you want to bring in these climate grifters from the United States so they can bleed the Canadian taxpayer, then you should at least allow the Canadians to get in on the grift. No? sell your trees.
It's only fair.
I would say so. Like, why are we letting American companies come in to get in on this grift? This company comes in, they can't get the tax credits in the United States because they stopped it. And here they come to Canada getting 75 cents or 75% tax credits. And then they're gonna actually be allowed to tax our oil companies by selling these carbon credits to oil companies.
And part of that 75%, like 12%, I think, is from the Alberta government, isn't it? So,
well, because they've been paid to go
might
along with.
Might want to ask the question, like, what's going on there then?
Well,
I thought Danielle Smith was hostile to this kind of thing, but
yeah, but they're probably being forced to do it. They're saying the emission caps must stay. So the only way you can pump more oil outside your emissions cap is to buy carbon credits.
or to do carbon capture. Got to suck it out of the air if you want to pump it. If you want to pump oil, you got to suck to pump. That's the catchphrase, isn't it?
Got to get careful there. Anyway, that's our show today. Again, we should all start campaigning that we want to sell our carbon capture. Ours is a lot simpler, though, right? It's just a tree. Seeds. Sell a packet of seeds and say, these are carbon capture.
That's been superseded now. We don't need trees anymore.
Oh, look at that.
Forget trees.
We're getting lame jokes now. Superseded seeds. There you go. We're back tomorrow, Tuesday. But today, we do have coming in, just to let you know, we do have at, what's today? Today, we have Macklin McCall coming in at 11:30. We're going to talk about the crime and stuff in BC. And then on Tuesday, so far we have Renee will be here for the regular show, Beyond the Ballot. And then we also have John Carpe coming in to talk about your rights from the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedoms. All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. Thank you for watching. If you could like, share, definitely share this out with a bunch of people. Silver, what's silver up to? Up to highs. How's that? Silver. That's all looking for. It is the poor man's gold, right? Silver at 48. Just to answer the question. Everybody loves silver too. But silver, you can buy yourself a silver maple. Silver in Canadian dollars, 48.57 right now, up 66 cents. But in Canadian dollars, want to take a guess at it there? 67.78 for a silver maple. We got to pay more for the maple. There's a premium on it, so it's about $70 probably for a maple. If you want to buy one of those 1 ounce coins. There you go. All-time high though for silver. What was the all-time high? Around $50, I think. We're getting close though. Getting really close. We're banging on those triple, like it was, I think back in 1980, the Hunt brothers did it, and then it had a quick run there. I'm just trying to find the exact high. I don't know, I can't seem to nail it there, but $50 there in 2016-ish, something there when it had a little bit of a pop. Not sure why that pop happened. Maybe that was the meme stock thing. Anyway, there you go. That's our show for today. See you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thanks for watching Now Media.